Welcome, everyone. It's been a good meeting so far. We started yesterday morning with committees. So for me, that was the special operating committee and then the compensation committee, and then Kerry had the foundation meeting in the afternoon, which were good. And then this morning we started with rules, which is with the coaches and GMs there, and had a lot of spirited conversations, especially about the new kickoff rule potentially, and the hip drop tackle, and having the hip drop tackle be penalized as that passed unanimously, and more discussion to be had on the new kickoff. So we'll see. But anyway, happy to take questions from you all.
You've had sort of different approaches, especially as it pertains to free agency from year one to year two. And I know you talked a little bit about that last year, and I'm curious, like, how much you've learned about just long range, what you want your philosophy to roster building and team building to be just over the course of the last 12 months.
Yeah, obviously a very different approach this year versus last year. We knew last year we had a couple of immediate needs on both the offensive line and the defensive line that we had to fill in, and we just didn't have the draft picks to fill that in. So we were aggressive the first day. We knew going in this go around we weren't going to take the same approach, and I've been impressed with Sean and George, and they've been very measured and strategic. Our approach is going to be long term to build the roster through the draft, and then be opportunistic with free agency and trades, and strike when we're in a good place to do that. But we're not going to be aggressive every year like we were last year.
As obviously, Russell Wilson was acquired before you took over the team, and then the extension was among the first things that happened after. And I'm curious, now that he's officially been released and signed with Pittsburgh, what you learned from that process and what you take from that sort of going forward into future years.
Yeah, again, I mean, the initial decision was made before we got here, and I think it was made in the context of this is a player who's had a lot of success in the league, multiple Pro Bowls. They took a shot at really upgrading ourselves with that position, but it just didn't work out for whatever reasons, and we made the tough decision to move on this off season, and wish Russ the best in his new situation. I was in contact with him after we made the decision, and we just wish him the best as he moves forward.
I'm sorry, Greg, what was the thinking on taking the $53 million cap hit this year and then the 32 next year?
Yeah, there were a number of factors that went into that. We considered what we were going to do in free agency this year. We obviously looked at the players that we had on the roster. We wanted to make sure we were going to be competitive for this coming up season, but also for the long term. And we felt like we could take the bigger hit this first year and still be successful and competitive this coming season, and be in an even better position next season.
Every business is different, but I guess how unique is it when you have something's not going well that's going to have such financial ramification? Because maybe in other businesses that might cost people. I'm not saying that's disagree, but when you get this big hit on paper, how hard is that to stomach?
I mean, you prefer not to do that, but I just think when you have a decision like this to make and you can position yourself for the future, you go ahead and if you've got a hard decision, you make the hard decision and you move forward, and that's what we did here.
Greg, how pleased were you with the improvements in the NFLPA survey that came out here recently in terms of nutrition, the medical staff, for those upgrades?
Yeah, positive improvements over the prior year. It's great to get that feedback. I don't think it's a perfect survey yet. This is the second year that they've done it. I think they'll keep improving that. But we learned some things last year, and we acted on that. So as you mentioned, performance, sports performance, both the training room, nutrition. We take it really seriously. How our players feel about coming into the building every day. Kerry mentioned it. The first day that we took ownership, we want to be the best team to play for, work for, and cheer for, and this is the play for part. Still a couple things we've got to do better. One is the weight room, the locker room. Those are things that are going to get addressed with the new training facility. And then there's some things that came out of it, like a family room at the stadium, that we're exploring now and seeing what we can do.
These new uniforms that are coming out in the next few weeks, how involved were you and Gary in that process?
exciting for fans to see that?
Really excited. It's time for a change, and we think we'll have something that honors Broncos country, and our fans will be pleased with elements of Colorado. It was an interesting process that Kerry was deeply involved with. I was the coaches, some of our players. So we got a lot of feedback also from the fans, and I think we're going to have something that you'll be excited about, and they'll be excited about.
You've spoken highly of George and just the way that he's worked. Fans will wonder about, like, take Russell Wilson, for example, and I'm curious just what you see day to day from him, whether it's, management style, leadership style that has led you to have that level of confidence.
Yeah, he's, I mentioned it after the end of the season. He's working really well with Sean. They've built a relationship of trust. I think they share a common vision for how they want to build the roster, and I've got a lot of confidence in the two of them working together and making good decisions for this team go forward.
With the construction of the new building, what impact will that have on kind of accommodations for training camp this summer?
Yeah, anytime you have a construction project of that size, it's going to have some impact. Our goal is going to be to minimize that, both for the fans during training camp as well as the team obviously during practices. We're still debating exactly when we start the project, whether that's before or after the training camp. But either way, we're gonna find ways that fans can still experience it, even if that is a little bit different than in the past.
Greg, on turf, back to what the players prefer. The grass versus the turf. You've replaced it a couple times at Empower. Is that a issue that you've educated yourself on? And is that something that is kind of a big issue as you consider the new stadium?
Yeah, getting educated. It came up. We talked about it again at the owners' meeting this morning, and what the different playing surfaces, what the data shows in terms of injuries. In our first season, we replaced it with one game to play. We weren't intending to do that, but the field we didn't feel it was safe for that last game. This last season, we were more intentional about the timing of it, and so we went ahead and replaced it before we got to that point where we needed that. I don't think we've announced it yet, but I'll talk about it now, which is we have replaced, or in the process of replacing, the turf in our indoor practice facility. It's about 10 years old. I believe the life of it was intended to be about 20 years, but we're going to replace it with a state-of-the-art artificial surface that's going to be better for our players. More padding, different material, but something that they should really feel the impact of during our practices.
What led to the decision to replace the turf? Was that player feedback or just general evaluation?
We actually didn't get much player feedback on that. It was more discussions with Sean, Bo Lowry, and just kind of talking about, questions about what is this surface when we know there are others that are more advanced, and if that's the case, again, we knew we were going to make a change at some point, so why not go ahead and do that now if it's better for our players.
For two more for Greg. Greg, during the draft season, how fun is it to be around Sean Payton? He's like in the candy store.
It is fun. I'd say it's probably more fun than during the season, but he eats this stuff up. He lives this, loves it, loves visiting with players, loves watching tape. He and George are together for hours, every day, talking through things, different points. Kerry and I, myself, whatever, we'll go sit in. They'll bring in other coaches, share what they're seeing on certain players. So it's a fun process, and our first draft was really interesting, even without many draft picks. So this one should be even more so.
Greg, some have suggested this is kind of a rebuilding season. You probably would differ because you said you guys can be competitive. How do you kind of look at the season, and what makes you think it's not going to be a rebuilding season?
We're passionate about being competitive, and that's both in the short term and the long term. You can call it sort of whatever you want, but our focus is on putting the best possible team on the field this coming year. I don't think there are any shortcuts or quick fixes. So we're going to do this in the right way, and have this team be competitive this coming season, but also be in a position to build for the future.